From the city of Palms, deep in the heart of South Texas, currently under attack by Winter Storm Inga,
Savagely.
you've tuned in to RTD Radio.
Good for you.
Hello. Think you're here for another episode of RTD Radio?
Yes, our shivering episode of coldness
Yep.
here in the valley.
Here in South Texas, it's about 30 degrees outside.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, I was just checking. This Saturday should go up to 80. So we'll see what happens. We'll be thawed out by then.
Hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Road to Damascus Radio.com and YouTube channel Camino a Damasco Radio.com and also YouTube channel. For those of y'all who are listening to us for the very first time, you can check out our past podcast at the addresses I just mentioned before. We have, 14 in English and like 9 in Spanish. We need to catch up on those Spanish ones, Mando.
Yeah, it's just today it's mid January.
Yeah.
And of course we're doing our best to get these episodes out. And as always, it's going to be quality over quantity.
Yes.
So we want to make sure we do our best to give you the best.
Yes. Which is why we're going to tackle not one of the most controversial, but definitely a controversial subject when you're talking about end times prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yep. What and who are they? Yeah, and just like you said, keep it in line with our end times series. This would be the next topic to cover. Of course, the 4 horsemen, just like you said.
Yes, which are specifically found referenced in Revelation 1 through 8. Revelation 6 verses 1 through 8.
Mm-hmm.
Where specifically the scroll is being opened. And apparently these are the first occurrences after the scroll begins to be opened. So, I don't know, do you want to just read them real quick? Or?
Yeah, it's only about, if I'm not mistaken, 8 verses.
Yep.
So, specifically about the 4 horsemen. So, yeah, Revelation 6, 1 through 4?
1 through 8.
1 through 8, sorry.
I got them. You want the King James or the New International?
Let's stick to the King James, only because I know there's a few out there that... No, nothing bad. I mean, to be honest with you, let's just stick to what we know.
There is some word changes there. So yeah, let's just keep it as traditional as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So Revelation 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And then when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And behold, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death. And hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Wow, man.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's pretty rough.
Pretty rough, yeah. So let's go ahead and let's start off verse 2 straight out is when he beheld a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer.
Yes.
So I know I've heard different interpretations of who this horseman could be. Yeah. One, of course, being Christ himself. I've actually heard that because Christ, of course, is coming back on a white horse. And in this case, this individual is, of course, given a crown, and on him had a bow. Yeah. I've also heard it being the opposite. It's being the actual Antichrist. Because then why would Jesus come twice?
And he's actually opening the scroll. So it'd be kind of strange that the person opening the scroll is also participating. So honestly, I don't know, man. It's extremely metaphoric. And I've heard really varied ideas on even how to approach this issue. I know one of the most prevalent end times ministers, I guess you could call him, Irvin Baxter, has a completely different idea. Yeah. And does not subscribe any of the four horsemen to an actual individual, rather forms of governance.
Or like an abstract. So it's not an individual person.
Yeah, he actually equates them to the red one being communism, the black one being capitalism, and strangely the white one being Catholicism. And the different descriptions are what he takes as examples or proofs for his argument. But I mean, this is just to show how vastly different ideas are concerning these four horsemen. One thing that strikes me as important to consider is that at this moment in the book of Revelation, which we're going to recap, this is the revelation of Jesus Christ. So the whole book pretty much is a vision describing the revelation of Jesus Christ. And at this specific moment in the book, the scroll is being opened, the scroll that the Lamb has in his possession, and the seals are starting to be broken on this scroll that has 7, if I'm not mistaken. So
I know the most modern name that they give him is pestilence.
Yeah.
That's pretty much like straight out in modern times, the four are usually known as death, famine, war, and conquest / pestilence. Pestilence, of course, is another word. Some people use it interchangeably with conquest. So, because I mean, specifically reading the text, he went forth conquering and to conquer. So that's literally what he does. So as far as where they get pestilence from, I'm assuming that whatever this individual conquers, or this whoever, actually, to be honest with you, now that I read it, because it's a horse and it says, and he that sat on him. Yeah. So it is specifically referring to one individual and not, let's say, like a group or something, as far as the text. Yeah. As far as the text reads. Yeah. So I can definitely see how it was viewed as, let's say, the Antichrist, because of course the Antichrist will be given power, and he will be given dominion of the earth. So I could definitely see that interpretation fitting within the description of this rider on the white horse.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because it does kind of fall in line to the later descriptions of the Antichrist and some of the power he's given. Yeah. And of course, he's not going to just come in. I mean, he's going to conquer. He's going to do all he can. And of course, for those that do not go willingly, there will be, of course, a pestilence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could see that view. I don't know, man. I'm torn between trying to ascribe a person or an ideology or a group of people or even a form of thought to these horsemen. And I know one thing that a lot of people try to do when tackling this issue is they go to other parts of Scripture where the same descriptions of this prophecy are given. For example, in other parts of Revelation, there are parts of the vision that Daniel had in the book of Daniel that are used as supporting evidence, if you will, or just as a comparison to try and understand or take clues from. So I've seen some people specifically take these 4 horsemen and try to compare them to the prophecy found in the book of Zechariah. And that's also Zechariah 6, verses 1 through 8, where he's talking about 4 chariots. So, I'm going to read that one real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so we could kind of bring into context that type of interpretation. So here we go. This is Zechariah 6, 1 through 8. And I'm actually going to read from the New International Version, because it's the one I've got in my notes. I looked up again, and there before me were 4 chariots coming out from between 2 mountains of bronze. The first chariot had red horses, the second black, the third white, and the fourth dappled, all of them powerful. I asked the angel who was speaking to me, "What are these, my Lord?" The angel answered me, "These are the 4 spirits of heaven going out from standing in the presence of the Lord of the whole world. The one with the black horse is going toward the north country, the one with the white horse towards the west, and the one with the dappled horse towards the south." When the powerful horses went out, they were straining to go throughout the earth, and he said, "Go throughout the earth." So they went throughout the earth. Then he called to me, "Look, those going toward the north country have given my spirit. Rest in the land of the north." I'm going to stop there. The idea behind reading these paragraphs is that people want to relate what Zechariah saw to what Paul is witnessing in his revelation. And I think that because they're describing them by color, that's how they're matching these 2 prophecies to actually be describing the same thing. However, personally, I don't think so. Again, because this would totally discard the idea that the horsemen embody a specific person. And I do think that one of these 4 horsemen is actually going to be personified by a person who's yielding absolute power and submitting all of those people that do not bow to his will, and thus bringing forth some of the wrath that's being handed out.
Yeah, definitely, because I see it. Of course, it's happening. There's a specific order to the way the horses are presented. Yeah. So in this case, I could see that if the rider on the right horse was, let's say, a specific individual, then one could see it as, because of this white horse, the rest came with him, or they're like consequences of this white horse, culminating in, of course, the last one, which is literally named Death. So I could see that
the pale horse.
Yeah, named Death is what the verse says. So I could definitely see that. I tend to lean more to it actually being the Antichrist myself. Of course, there's interpretations as to why not. But one would be, of course, that these are spiritual beings, and the Antichrist is a material, actual being. Things like that. But going back to what you said, if we take it metaphorically, this could metaphorically be representing the power of that Antichrist, and not the actual human being I can go touch, physical man.
Okay.
But I'm definitely open to different interpretations.
So you're saying these four horsemen are descriptions of one antichrist?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Okay. The one antichrist is which one of the four then?
The white.
One?
Yeah.
The white one? Okay. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and with him come war, with him come the famine, and with him come death.
So the other three are
his
concepts.
Entourage.
Okay, but they're not specific people, as in this case that the first one is the Antichrist.
The way I see it, that it makes sense to me, that would be an idea, yeah. Because I don't think you can personify war as a human being. Not like in the sense of like the Greek god Ares would be war personified.
Yeah.
Or let's say in this case also death personified, which would be the fourth horseman, where it literally says the fourth is named death.
Yeah.
And literally behind him followed what? Hell.
Yeah.
So in this case, not to be cliche, but of course you got your Grim Reaper personification of death. Yeah. Now, is it a tangible human being that I can? Can I go hug death, for example? No. Yeah. It's gonna be a metaphoric personification. It's gonna be an abstract personification of something. Like I said, like let's say Ares, war, and same thing with famine, which would be the third one. But I don't know. That's just like I said, what I've been looking at and what I've read, and what kind of makes sense to me at the moment. Of course, I'm sure every day as we read and study, thing gets shifted around in our heads. As far as my point of view, the way it makes sense to me, it might not make sense to a lot of different people, but the way it makes sense to me is, like I can see that as because in the first place, these four horsemen are harbingers. Yeah. They are literally the beginning of things to come. Yeah. So a harbinger would be like, in a simple explanation, you see the clouds gathering up in the sky, it's a harbinger that rain's coming. Yeah. Yeah, they're literally going to be signs of what's coming ahead. Yeah. Because these seals are being opened one by one on one giant scroll. Yeah. So as each seal is being opened, something is happening. Yeah. So these personifications given in the description of a horse with a rider, yeah, what comes behind them is something. So in this case, the white horse is given the ability to conquer. Yeah. He's literally conquering, and his purpose is he went forth conquering and to conquer. Yeah. But when it says he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. So that authority was given to this rider on the horse to go forth conquering and to conquer. Yeah. And of course, what did he have with him? A bow. A bow is not a weapon. A bow is not a thing of peace. Yeah, of course. I've never seen a peace negotiation with somebody holding a bow, or in this case, let's say a weapon. Yeah. So it's going to be some kind of, I'm not going to say violent, but he's going to use force to go conquering and to conquer. Yeah. I agree. In the metaphoric interpretation of the four, I don't think one specifically is describing one individual. Mm-hmm. I think, like you mentioned, that's describing different occurrences that will happen, like domino effect, one after the other. And here's why: because it kind of goes through them really quickly, almost like, okay, guys, the scroll is opening. The first four seals, boom! All this stuff is just gonna be bestowed upon you. And it's almost like foreshadowing the other three seals opening, which culminates in the wrath being poured out. Because after this, remember, the trumpets are sound on the actual seventh seal. Like on the seventh seal, all hell breaks loose, and wrath is just totally poured out upon the earth. Mm-hmm. So what I see here is something that's not constrained to a
time frame, but almost something that's being presented, and like you mentioned, as a harbinger. And obviously, after the conquest comes the different repercussions of being conquered.
Yeah.
Leading up until the fourth one, who's riding a pale horse, whose name is Death. So to me, it's kind of describing, well, first there's this conquest of the heart and mind of the people, and then next comes this
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off what you said, I've actually heard arguments. Well, of course, it's not an Antichrist figure, but it's more like the conquering of our hearts and mind.
Yeah.
And I've seen where Matthew 24, verse 4-5, are to back that up, where it's more of a religious deception. Yeah. Where, for example, where Jesus is answering and saying, "Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." Yeah. So I've heard people say that he's talking about the white horse in this way, because that white horse is that religious deception where this if you want to, I'm going to say individual, where this concept of the white horse is coming up and deceiving people, saying that obviously the color white is going to be a peaceful color. Yeah. Whenever somebody gives up, it's always they wave a white flag. Whenever there's some kind of white is just universally known as peaceful. So this individual's gonna come on a white horse, and the first thing you're gonna think of is he's coming peacefully. Peacefully. But if you want to take that Matthew 24, 4-5,
he's wielding a bow.
He's wielding a bow, exactly, and he's being deceitful. So. Yeah, and I also see that as an Antichrist, but I mean,
no, an Antichrist spirit, which it literally describes.
Yeah, so I've heard it more. Also, I've heard it referred to the white horse rider as Jesus Christ himself, the Antichrist, and now we also see it as a religious deception. Yeah, so there's different interpretations. I don't know if you have any additional ones or.
Yeah, well, no. What I was saying is that first comes this deception of the heart and mind, and then comes the red horse, which is given the power to kill one another. And then the third horse, the black one, is wielding a scale. And there's a comment about a day's wages and what it's worth. And it leads up to the fourth one. So to me, it's kind of like saying, well, first there's this conquering of the heart and mind, which is going to lead the people disagreeing heavily and thus going as far as killing each other. Then there will be judgment of the doings of each person upon each other, but this judgment will be so wrong that the wages of all of this will be complete death.
Well, let's go each individual horse before we do a big picture of of like a layout of what all of them are, because we haven't even literally gotten past the first one yet. Okay. So as far as the first one, I don't know if you have anything to add to that one. The white horse, the ride on the white horse.
No, that's pretty much
it. And like you said, the red one. So we're going to be on Revelation 6, verse 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. So in this case, once again, all the power is on the rider. It's want to stress that the horse itself is just happens to be a certain color, but the actual focus should be on the actual rider of the horse, not the horse itself. In this case, of course, obviously, it's always commonly referred to as war. Yeah. The red horse is commonly always referred to as war, given, of course, taking away peace from the earth and people are killing each other. And in this case with the great sword, so that's going to be referred to as war. I personally don't have any other ideas of what else it could be. I know, like you said, Urban Baxter kind of refers to it as the concept of communism. Yeah, and
he relies heavily on the colors, stating that all of the major communist countries have identified themselves with the color red. Russia, China, Also, he cites some of the ideologies prevalent within these countries as being personified by red something, like the Red Army, the Red Movement, the Red Tide. They even go as far as painting some of their buildings red, specifically ones that deal with power and absolutes. The incident at Tiananmen Square was also, I think it was referenced as part of the Red Movement, etc. So I do subscribe to this idea as the writer being a spirit
of war,
a spirit that is going to prevail. In obviously here a major thing is that I think that they're referring to those that are not walking with Christ. I think that's a big concept that, at least for me, we gotta put out there up front. And I say this because when you keep reading Revelation, all of the happenings and all of the punishment go to those that are not wearing the seal. I mean, at this moment in time, they haven't mentioned the seal on the forehead, but a little bit later, it does get very specifically mentioned. So to me, this part of Revelation is kind of working up into that, describing the ideologies, the feeling, and the basic ambiance that's going to be prevalent when the end times come, which are being described by the first seals of this bigger scroll. So, yeah, man. Third one being that black horse.
Yeah, just real quick. Yeah. Like I was referencing, there's a lot of people that will use Jesus' own words to that they tend to seem they think that he's alluding to the four horsemen in Matthew 24, which is of course the famous show us the signs of the end of the world. The apostles, of course, just like us right now, want to know what's going to happen. So I just referenced Matthew 24, 4-5, which was his talking about a religious deception. Yeah. Now, if we just, next verse over, Matthew 24, 6-7, and you shall hear wars and rumors of wars, yet that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places. So I've heard that used to also, I don't want to say back up, but let's say Jesus is referencing this specific horseman, which would be the red horse, as war. Yeah, so it would fit in line with that's the second thing he mentioned in his speech to the apostles. So so just go to that. I mean, I haven't heard any other, apart from communism. I haven't heard any other interpretations of who this red horseman could be. No, not dealing specifically with red. No, for the most that I've heard, it's going to be war. Yeah, I haven't heard anybody say anything else. Yeah. So the third horse,
Yeah, it'd be the black horse, who's wielding this scale, and balances, how it's referred to. And here the difference in the different translations starts having some importance. Because in the NIV, he's talking about a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. And the King James Version is saying, and behold, and lo, a black horse, and that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. To me, it just, one is kind of saying this rider is the one in charge of operating the balances, and the other translation is kind of like these balances are going to be imposed upon the people. So, some of those different translations start at least throwing me off as to, okay, are we talking about the horseman being the actuator, or being the one that brings this spirit into the world, or are we starting to talking about judgment being passed upon the people present at this time? You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So is it a spirit that the people on the earth are adopting and reacting to, or is this the first example of judgment being starting to happen amongst the masses? Baxter goes to using the scale to signify capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes in a totally different direction with the metaphor of the scale, takes the idea away from the writer, and totally says this concept of the black horse is actually describing capitalism
mm-hmm.
as a counterpart to communism, which is one that came right before. So I'm not sure, man.
I've heard it too. Of course, this is also known as famine. Obviously, the most common name or attribute given to this horse on the rider on the black horse is going to be famine.
Yeah.
Now, specifically, that's because of verse 6 when it says, "And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts saying, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see, thou hurt not the oil and wine." It's pretty much referring to that money's going to be, I guess, so worthless that wheat for a penny things are going to be super expensive because there's a lack of. If you want to take, let's say, in the capitalist system, yes, we go for that supply and demand. If there's a low supply, then obviously the prices are going to be super expensive, and vice versa. So in this case, he's holding a pair of balances. Now, I had never heard it like you said it regarding the differences in the translations. I personally don't see it like that.
Yeah. I could give an example to help out if you'd like.
I'm good. Yeah. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. Okay, so a penny, a measure of wheat for a penny. Okay, yes, we can take the interpretation that, oh man, during this time money's going to be useless. But then at the same time, we could also be talking about the actions of men being worthless, whereas before, this act of faith would have been worth so much more. Today, this act of faith is not worth as much because you can see imminent doom coming down the pipeline. So, to give a very crude example, now that we've passed the first and second horsemen, because at this point we're talking about the third one. So after you've been conquered, after people have started killing each other, oh, now you want to talk about God. Oh, now you're a believer. Well, you know what? The balance is, the scale has a higher weight on this side. So your act of faith is not as valuable today as it would have been if you would have had these acts of faith before the first 2 horsemen showed up. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's definitely one interpretation.
Yeah.
I had never actually heard it like that, but that's definitely one interpretation. One also because balances are usually commonly seen in what? Either in justice. For example, the blind lady just is holding what? She's holding balances.
Yeah.
Also in commerce, balances, where one side is worth this measured on the other side. So I tend to see it more of a commercial transaction only because it's giving specific currencies and specific commodities, in this case, wheat, barley, oil, and wine. I had never heard it where wheat, barley, oil, and wine referred to as, let's say, faith, for example, as a metaphor for faith, like you just said. But it's definitely something to think about. But like I said, for the most case, I've always heard it referred to as just a lack thereof. In this case, the daily necessities of wheat, barley, oil, and wine, so that there's going to be a famine.
Yeah.
And not to, once again, to reference, of course, Jesus, as I've heard, back in Matthew 24:7, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, there's your second horseman, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. So I've heard these verses, of course, once again, used to reference the riders on the horse in this case.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's interesting the way you had said it, yeah.
I'm just basing myself on some other metaphors, like you mentioned, now that we're specifically talking about Jesus and the way he valued the gesture that a certain prostitute had by anointing his feet with oil that she had, which was her most prized possession. And I believe this was like a day before he was actually crucified, right? Where he was at a dinner with some of the Pharisees, and they were just talking about their supreme knowledge in scripture, yet this prostitute is going over there and anointing his feet with oil, right? So there are certain parts of scripture where objects are used to
to mean something else.
Yeah. So here, barley, wheat, and oil. I know I might be stretching it a little bit, but at the same time, I guess I'm just borrowing from other parts of scripture where.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was actually going to give an example right now. Yeah, definitely what you're saying. Like, for example, Jesus himself refers to as the individual Christian as a branch. So a useless branch that bears no fruit is going to be, of course, chopped up and thrown into the fire. Yes. So are you physically a branch? No, but Jesus himself is using that metaphor. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that, and there is precedence throughout the entire Bible.
It could be a financial transaction though.
That's where I tend to, just because, of course, the balance. Not that, once again, we are not the ultimate authority on on the explanation of Book of Revelation. Around ideas. Yeah. One kind of little tidbit that I'm reading right now, actually, of all places on Wikipedia. Yeah. But this one actually caught my attention pretty good, because one thing that does separate this writer is that he actually speaks to John. He's the actual one that says the whole thing about the wheat and barley. The rest don't speak to John.
Really?
Yeah, this is the one that says, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny. Yeah, he's like, that's the actual writer speaking to John about this, about what he's doing. Yeah. So, that's interesting. The other two, he just kind of saw him. This one, he actually, he
heard something.
He audibly hears him. And they explain it. Now, when in this case, John hears a voice unidentified, but coming from among the four living creatures. Yeah. That speaks of the prices of wheat and barley, also saying, "See thou hurt not the oil and wine." So for whatever reason, the prices of wheat and barley are going up, but he makes sure, for whatever reason, to not hurt the oil and wine. So that's where you kind of get that balance. Yeah. Now, this suggests that the black horse's famine is to drive up the price of grain, but leave oil and wine supplies unaffected. One explanation of this is that the grain crops would have been more naturally susceptible to famine years or locust plagues than olive trees and grapevines. This statement also might suggest a continuing abundance of luxuries for the wealthy. Wine staples, such as bread, are scarce, though not totally depleted. Yeah. So I could see also, even in the financial background, during times of, there's certain areas that are recession-proof, for example, and one, of course, being like alcohol. Usually when there's a famine or a depression, alcohol sales go up. And it's converse. Exactly. So I could definitely see it, just my point of view, just because my background in finances, I could definitely see where in times of trouble, obviously things like vice are gonna be cheaper. Actually are gonna be cheaper, or they're gonna be more abundant than, let's say, the necessities. There's always a term of bread and butter. We always hear that, bread and butter. Yeah. The basic price of bread and butter is this. Now as those prices go up, it's gonna that's where you get that famine. People can't afford as much. Yeah. So of course you're gonna get the early levels of famine. But for whatever reason, as prices of bread and butter go up, then you get the prices of oil and wine, and I could see that as, like, let's say alcohol, for example, tend to go down, things like that.
Oil be? I mean, wine is pretty specific, but
olive oil. Yeah, or oil they use to burn lamps. I mean, I don't know. It's just like I said, because oil is a pretty generic term.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see it as that. I tend to see it, like I said, as more as a there's a wanting, there's a general famine. Yeah, that's where I tend to see it as.
No, yeah, I agree. See, there's a lot of supporting. I don't want to call them facts because they're not facts, but there's a lot of supporting elements for different types of interpretation. So I guess that's why, specifically here on the Four Horsemen, I see some very prevalent ministers, pastors taking wildly different stances on this, just like us, because there's a lot of elements that you can support different interpretations and different ideas of what this means. It'd be very funny if this were totally literal.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
It'd be crazy if it were totally literal. Mainly because so many of our wheat is GMO nowadays, and who needs wine when we've got Xanax and and other, you know what I mean? So I think there's a level of metaphor that needs to get kicked into play here to make it fit. But definitely at this point, the third horseman, people are in the middle of it. I think at this point there's no denying that the seals have been broken and that stuff's starting to hit the fan.
Yeah.
My question at this point would be, do you think that this is speaking of a future event, or have those seals already been broken, and are we already seeing some of the horsemen that have ridden into the scene and we're starting to see the effects of this? It's a hard one.
Well, just like I know we've talked about, let's say, the Antichrist, I believe that they're, like the Bible refers to Antichrist, but at the end of the day, there's the Antichrist.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that because, for example, there have always been deceivers.
Yeah.
That'll be your white horse. There have always been wars. I think I read somewhere that at any given time on the earth, there's at least 14 to 20 armed conflicts.
Yeah.
So war has always been there.
Yeah.
There's actually never been a period of human history where there was full peace. No, there's always been some kind of conflict.
It's true.
As far as famine, even nowadays with our modern technology and GMOs, there's still famine.
Yeah.
So to say that this was past, present, or future, not that that's a loaded question, but I think just to reference what I said about the Antichrist, now there's always gonna there has always been these qualities in history: war, famine, pestilence, death.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be the war, the Antichrist, the great famine, and there's gonna be the death, where I can see that as that's like literally the culmination and the end of everything. Because if they're harbingers, then what they're announcing hasn't came yet. So once it comes, it's it.
To like the definitive one. I can see that working.
Yeah, that's the way I would see it. This is gonna. When I see let's go ahead and go on to the fourth seal, which is death.
Yeah.
Now, death is pretty final in our carnal form, so I don't see how there can be multiple
in
deaths.
Spiritual form too.
Yeah, but like in the carnal, there's no, apart from the people that Jesus and Peter resurrected, there's no other cases of zombies, for example.
Yeah.
So until, let's say, the day where man conquers death, quote unquote, by downloading himself into a computer,
transhumanism,
things like that. But eventually there's going to be a death of your physical body. So I don't see how. I mean, that's the end. I don't see how that can be like an ongoing process. Now, if you want to take it, of course, to the spiritual level, even John says, and this is the second death.
Yes.
So, and that he's referring to your spiritual. So even your spirit can die. He's specifically talking about that, and that's when you're literally in the lake of fire, where death and hell itself get thrown into the lake of fire. Yeah. So even death has an end.
Yeah,
past
of course.
Death.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but it even after you die in your flesh, you still have the ability to be dead.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like there's still that.
Yeah.
And
it's complicated.
Yeah, well, let's read it. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Now, one thing, that last sentence, and power was given unto them, he's speaking about the other three horsemen.
Or
is it multiple writers?
See, that's where the translations again get into the mix, because in the New International Version it says, I looked, and there before me was a pale horse, its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. Mm-hmm. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague. Now, without opening a can of worms, the whole Hades thing, that could mean like all of the devils, demons, and whomever had been locked up for the longest time. Now they're on the scene with this death, and they could mean the four horsemen, the spirits that are now here, along with the actual physical demons. Because why even mention hell or Hades if it's not going to play a role? It's understood that death, like you were saying, totally definite, even and on the spiritual level, death, is death. That's it, after death. Mm-hmm. So what does hell or Hades, according to the New International Version, how is that going to play a role into what's happening here? This is really because of these reasons, and because one word changes the meaning of everything totally. This is why I personally think that they're talking about spirits of. These four horsemen are the spirits of, X, Y, and Z. And I do not think that they're talking about a specific moment in time. Me personally, I think this is talking about in general across all of time. Mm-hmm. As in, these things will occur. And if I'm going to go into my way left field interpretations that I've been giving these past couple shows, trying to make this an individual thing. And if you take the total individual interpretation of this, once the spirit, the first four spirits come over you, the first three spirits come over you, the fourth spirit is the wages of everything you've done. There's death, and hell and everything is coming with it. And it's I just think that these metaphors, this prophecy, could still be describing an individual experience within creation, while at the same time giving full-blown play-by-play prophecy to the people living within creation. Mm-hmm. I truly think that the Bible is that amazing that it can talk to you on a very individual, specific level, and at the same time talk to everybody and everything within creation, with one message. So I know it's a big stretch, but I want to throw it out there for contemplation. Mm-hmm. And again, because we're not authorities in any of this, and the purpose of these conversations is to throw out ideas that maybe you hadn't thought about before, or maybe you had, and now you're realizing that there are other people out there that think
might
the same,
see it different, yeah,
mm-hmm. or that are thinking the exact same thing that you are. For all we know, it really could be the first four horsemen is the Antichrist, the Antichrist of Antichrist, and he brings these other three metaphoric things into fruition. I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say, like, for example, hell, that's using the King James version.
Yeah.
And Hades using the NIV. for the most part, as I've always read it and understood it, hell it's going to be mainly a place. It's not going to be a like to use the Greek example, the Greek god Hades was the personification. Yeah. But even then, Hades himself was a person. He lived in the underworld. So I guess Hades was literally his name, and where they went was the underworld. So, but I'm going to stick to the King James Version, and the way I see it is after death, you're destined for one or two places. Yeah. To either hell or heaven. In this case, these individuals, the writer's name was Death, and hell followed with him. The way I see it is once death hits you, you're going to hell. I don't see it as creatures or entities coming out of hell, only because, as far as from my understanding, there's the only entities that have been able to actually descend into hell and come back out would have been Jesus himself. Yeah. And the dragon in the abyss. I haven't seen myself any examples in the Bible, at least, where something that goes into hell comes out of hell. Yeah. I haven't seen that, but then again, that's why I'm thinking that hell in this case would be more of a place rather than in a personification. And also where it says, and power was given unto them over a fourth part of the earth. I tend to interpret that as when it says unto them, he's talking about the rest of the horsemen are going to be able to control a fourth part of the earth to kill with a sword, which to me is the red horse, to kill with hunger, which to me is the third horse, and with death, which is of course literally referring to as the fourth horseman, which is named Death, and with the beasts of the earth. So I see it, that actual statement referring to themselves. So
4 individuals are going to one by one kill I don't know how many million people?
No, I'm not saying individuals. I say they're going to be the culmination of what they are. Because like I said, I don't think death can be an individual. Yeah. For example, I don't think, like I said, I can't go hug the individual entity that is death. I don't think you can. I think death, like you said, well, for example, us, we ourselves have it in us to cause death. It's not an individual. Yeah, that's true. So I don't, exactly, and same thing, famine is not an individual. Okay. War is not an individual. And I think I kind of alluded to that where even the Greeks, they tried to do their best to personify it as a god, but they couldn't. So I could see, yes, death more as like death being death. It's literally the result of the white horse, the red horse war, the third horse famine. This is like literally the next step in line is death. Is death. And where hell follows them. Yeah. Going back to Baxter, one thing that is important that actually he really it did kind of raise my eyebrow a little bit is in the interpretation of pale horse. Yeah. The word pale actually, I'm not going to say is incorrect, but it could be meant as something else, because in the original Greek or the original whatever language it was written in, I'm going to say Greek, the word is actually chloros, horse. Okay. So the word chloros actually being the root word for chlorophyll or chloroform, which is actually green. Green, okay. Yeah. So actually it should more specifically say, I beheld a green horse. Yeah. Rather than pale. So he, of course, when he sees green, he's automatically alluded to Islam. To Islam, so he views the actual fourth horse in his consistency of them being ideals. He views the fourth horse actually as Islam. As Islam, yes. Being the red horse, which and he gives massive supporting evidence to on how they worship death and things like that. Yeah. And literally right now they are about a fourth of the human population is Islamic. So or rapidly approaching that. Yeah. So I mean it does, there are some similarities to Islam and let's say this fourth horse. So that's another interpretation where they bring death with them. Because I mean, not that I'm anti anything or bashing whatever, but for the most part, a lot of the Islamic world is not going to be the best shape right now. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not to, like I said, to bash anybody or whatnot, but I mean, it is what it is. I'll be honest with you, that there's a reason why. But yeah, so I just
Yeah,
want to say that.
I can see that. I can see.
I could definitely see that, especially when it breaks it down to the color green. Yeah, because that's
Yeah,
because their flag is green.
to follow the color interpretation and
Mm-hmm.
ascribe those colors to ideologies. I could see that working, and I could agree that if you have an ideology that worships death or in some way, shape, or form is bent on bringing it to those that they feel are unworthy, I could see that working.
Where they're taking you to hell. Yeah.
At the same time, though, the second horseman specifically was given a large sword. So,
Mm-hmm.
when a sword is not to caress people, it's pretty much to bring them down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
another topic or question that I definitely don't have the answer to is: are these 4 horsemen coming out at the same time? So all these are happening at the same time, or is it because this is it like a chronological order, or like I said, are they happening at all at the same time?
Yeah.
That's definitely a good question. And one thing that I also did notice that I'm sure a lot of you did is they were all given power.
Yeah.
On their own, they can't do anything.
No.
All of them are given powers. So the question is, who's giving them the power? Why and why are they given that power?
Yeah.
So that's another question.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think I made my stance already known on that one. I don't think it's a chronological thing.
Yeah, you think that it's like a cyclical thing
yeah,
that's continuously happening, for example.
And again, I think it could be something that can describe an individual's experience while at the same time describing the whole of creation in a novella type. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
As to who's giving the power,
I'm gonna say obviously God. I'm gonna say yeah. God is giving them the ability to do all this, or He's maybe not giving them, but also allowing them.
Yeah, like everything else that is allowed.
Yeah,
which is one thing that I get into with a lot of people who have that classic argument of, well, why does God allow this and God allow that, and not these other things? At least people are on the idea that things are being allowed, whether they agree with them or not. This higher power that we're calling God is allowing it, and He most likely has a very good reason for allowing things that we would consider atrocities to happen.
Yeah.
To bring it back to this, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know. It's very interesting to throw out different types of ideas, different possible interpretations. And I think this is one of those things that you throw out there, and everybody is going to have their own spin, at least their own spin, if not a totally radically different way of interpreting this part of Revelation. Revelation as a whole is a real debated topic.
Yeah, I think until it all happens, we're not going to know.
Yeah. I'm in the camp of those that we're not totally supposed to know. Just because of the way it's written. And again, I don't think that in Zechariah is talking specifically about this part of Revelation. But then again, they could. I mean, God could have, if there is one event that's going to go down, or one series of events that are going to go down, I don't see why He wouldn't give visions to different prophets throughout time. I see during the Bible, Jesus Himself like repeating His teachings in different parables and different ways several times, even to the point where I think He gets frustrated at
He gets frustrated a few times
at His disciples. Like, how long am I gonna have to put up with you guys? I keep telling you the same thing. But at the same time, I think God is conscious of our fallen nature, and I think He's halfway expecting some of this from us. So I don't know. It might just be His sense of humor. by giving us these revelations this way.
Yep.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what I got for the 4 horsemen.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to note that, of course, we're talking about chapter 6 of Revelation. Chapter 5 of Revelation, keep in mind, nothing's happened yet. These are literally the first occurrences that happen.
Yeah.
In chapter 5, John is just taken up to heaven, and literally the whole of chapter 5 is him describing the throne room of God.
Yeah.
So it's not until chapter 6 that it actually, things start going down.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to want to take it as a chronological order where one of the seals was opened, so in this case something did happen in order for this to happen, because the 4 horsemen aren't going to come out on themselves. The seal had to have been opened for them to come out.
Yes.
So there is some element of
a beginning
chronological point. Yeah, there is a beginning point. They're not going to just happen on their own.
Yeah.
This is literally the first description of, let's say, what you want to call end times prophecy of what's going to go down. Yeah. So literally the first mention of any end time prophecy in the book of Revelation would, of course, be the white horse.
The white horse, yeah.
The rider on the white horse, sorry. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important. Yeah, so if you want to take it as, let's say, like you mentioned, like a complete cyclical thing, then that means that seal would have had to been opened already since the beginning of time.
Probably.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you can take it to the interpretation. If you're following that interpretation and the seal was open at the beginning of time, I could see these spirits having influence in everything since the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm. And it's also important to note that each rider is an individual seal. So the first seal is the white, second seal the red, third seal is the black, fourth seal is the pale horse, and then the fifth seal is going to be verse 9 and on. Yeah. So each individual rider comes out of their each individual seal on this greater scroll. So,
yes. And then you get into the seventh seal that's got 7 trumpets accompanied with it, and it's
so that seal on its own has little
sub
branches. Yeah. Has sub seals. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like you said, it's just it's interesting. I personally see them as harbingers of what to come. So I don't see that they've happened yet, but I can definitely see where you can apply this as continuous spirits that are just oppressing mankind. Yeah. Of course, a spirit of deception, a spirit of war, a spirit of pestilence, and a spirit of death.
Which those have been
they've been here
since
forever,
Jesus' time, since before.
Actually, the only time they would have taken power would have been the second Adam and Eve stepped out of Eden. Yeah, because in Eden there would have been none of this. There would have been no death.
This is
because they didn't die. There would have been no pestilence because they didn't have to worry about anything. Of course, no war.
Yeah.
And no rider.
No death. Yeah, no riders.
The only so
no necessity
the second they stepped out of Eden would have been. I guess you would say that's when the seal was opened. I guess if you want to take it like that, that's when this first seal was opened.
That leads me to the only obvious question: if it's not talking about something like that, and things are the way they are right now, and the seals are to be opened in the future. I mean, things are pretty bad right now.
It's going to be really bad.
It's going to be like wow bad. I mean, things are wow bad right now. I mean, let's be honest. There's some really wow bad stuff. Mm-hmm. So if we're not even within the seals, man.
Yeah, just an issue I have with that is because it specifically says that their power was given to a fourth part of the earth. So does that mean the other 3 parts are no white rider, no war, no pestilence, and no death? So, like, how come only that 1/4 is affected, and the other 3/4 are just okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's another question because they are specifically given a dominion over 1/4 of the earth. Yeah. Now, one could argue, does that mean the population of the earth, or is that an actual geographical location where there's a no, and if you take it to the Islam, if you take it to that Islam interpretation, then literally every Islamic country, that would be the boundary of these horsemen. Yeah. But if you take it to, like, let's say a population wise where it's so mixed that's going to be everywhere. Now, there's going to be a specific 1/4 of mankind that have these spirits in them. And then there you go.
Yeah, that could be it.
There's a lot of... You can go super deep.
You run into brick walls on any interpretation, honestly. Mm-hmm. That's why, again, we come back to, I don't think anyone totally knows and is probably not supposed to know. But I want to hear some comments in that comment section. See what you guys think. And hopefully there's some interpretations that we haven't discussed in this show. Please let us know, and we will definitely talk about them on a later show.
Yeah. And actually, correction. I know I mentioned that I haven't seen a place where anybody comes out of hell. Correction, I'm sorry. In Revelation 20:13, it specifically says, "And death and hell were delivered up the dead which were in them." Yeah. So even the book of Revelation kind of refers to hell as a place. Yeah. So just to finish what you were saying, at the end of the day, they're gonna get conquered. Death and hell will have no power over us that stay with Christ. And just to, if some of you are worried about death and worried about hell, I'm gonna get right with God. I'm gonna actually Revelation 20:14, chapter 20 verse 14, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. Yeah. This is the second death. So the rider whose name was Death, with hell behind him, not even he can go around the wrath of God, and even they get judged. So death is not a good thing. Yeah. So I just want to leave it at that. But even they get conquered by, of course, Christ himself. So you shouldn't be afraid. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be pleasant, like you said. But we all know how it ends. So
yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Get right with the Maker.
That's right.
Don't wait. Today's the day.
Today's the day.
Because no one is assured another day.
That's right.
And all of these quote-unquote metaphors could be culminating for all we know right now. Yeah. We don't know. So get right with God. Do it for yourself. I truly believe that everybody deep down inside knows what's going on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't wait for the horseman to come knocking, man.
No,
don't wait. And don't go looking for him. I know there's people that are obsessed, that they want to... Yeah. They're so obsessed with trying to identify these horsemen, who, or entities they are, that get right. Yeah. It's more important that you be with God than say, aha, I know who that horseman is. At the end of the day, that's not going to matter.
Yeah, don't wait.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not going to matter. Yeah. Don't wait for that.
Don't wait for that. Don't give yourself excuses. If you're one of those people that's listening right now and you're bent on identifying the horseman so that then you can take action.
Oof, you already waited too long, man.
You're doing it wrong, man. Yeah. Get right now. Yeah. So I'm good.
I'm good. I'm glad we were back for another episode. I'm glad it's been a while, but
the first one this year, dude.
Yeah, well, it's because honestly, weather and things coming up. I had my daughter turn 1, and it just even with work. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad. Crazy. Hopefully, like I said, we get your comments, and please hit subscribe. We definitely need those numbers to go up because it's for me it's motivation. So it's good.
We're not making any money off of this. Yeah, it's not monetized at all. Just to be really clear, y'all and clearly see that our channel is not monetized. We're trying to iron sharpen iron. We're trying to cause road to Damascus moments inside the hearts of all of y'all. Mm-hmm. And just edify ourselves through collaboration. So God bless all of you. Thank you for giving us your ears.
Yeah, God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you later.
Awesome.